The Doors improved to 5-2. What's the reward? Well, they cracked the top 25 for the first time in a decade, which reinforces the overhaul.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So Vandy beat Ball State 24-14 to improve to 5-2 on the season. The win itself wasn't pretty, but it puts them one game away from bowl eligibility. Pavia and Stowers were excellent, but for the first time in a decade, they are ranked. And this really reinforces Clark Lea's overhaul. So the overhaul, something I've been talking about since January, has been validated now as Vandy continues to navigate this season. No one in their right mind would have thought this could be remotely possible after seeing where this program was a year ago. So this is an amazing, we'll call it a feather in Clark Lea's cap. We'll call it, another, I don't want to say break in the wall because that sounds so much like Butch Jones, but it just validates what Clark Lee has done from November until now and turning this whole thing around, because this Clark Lea's program was dead in the water. It was bound to be. They were going to give him one more year, and everyone felt like it was just a kind of a dead man walking type year. Who in their right mind would come here and work with Clark Lee, knowing that this is going to be a 1-year deal, and they're just going to play out the season. It's a tough schedule, and here we go, right? So Vandy starts to get a little bit of momentum through the portal. They get Tim Beck, they get Jerry Kill, they get Diego Pavia, they get Nate Johnson. Nate Johnson, I think, was before Pavia, but they get a whole bunch of transfers. They hire some new staffers. They overhaul the strength program. They overhaul the scouting department and recruiting department. The creative team was beefed up a little bit, and their content was enhanced as well. So it's one of those things where just every aspect of the program was scrutinized and built on. And honestly, the net reward is, for the first time in a decade, Vandy is relevant. And this isn't a fluke. That's the thing. This is no fluke whatsoever. This is something that they've been working towards since January. Coach Steiner, the first day he got into them, right? The first day he met them, put them through the ringer, put them through some adversity. And they were, again, when the players are like, oh man, they're dog tired, and they're saying, oh God, this sucks, it's brutal. When they start doing those complaints, deep down, they're probably thankful that somebody's pushing them, somebody is putting them through situations and putting them through some adversity so that they can actually, push themselves through these situations. And that's taking place on the field. All right. Scouting. When they revamped that program, you saw an influx of transfer portal guys, especially on the offensive line, some of the wide receivers, although the wide receivers haven't really kind of stepped up yet. But I think that's more of scheme, and, there's some other factors involved there. But, Jerry Kill, I think when he decided to come to Vanderbilt and to be, he didn't want to get completely out of coaching. He's somebody that he could lead any program he wants, but he's not healthy enough to do so, right? He's not, he has epilepsy, among other things, and he can't handle physically. He cannot handle the stress of being the head coach of a program. But he could absolutely. He knows what buttons to press. He knows how to construct everything. He's a big factor in this resurgence, in this renaissance. We can say, but he has been advising Clark Lee all along. Clark Lee is saying, hey, listen, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down calling the defense myself and implementing my scheme and what I do best, right? And Jerry Kill's allowing him to do that. Bring in a Jerry Kill. He's advised him on situational stuff. He's advised him on how to act around the team, how to act in the media, how to act with recruiting, how to do this, how to do that, how to revamp everything to where Vandy can be a viable SEC program. And they're starting to kind of catch up. NIL is going to catch up very, very soon because the potential, and I've done multiple shows on this, but the NIL potential in Nashville is immense, right? So being ranked for the first time in a decade shows these NIL donors, hey, if you invest, we can go this way, right? We're proving that what we're doing is working. We're proving that all we need is a little bit more here, a little bit more there, some revamp here, some revamp there, some continued contribution, and everything will fall into place. You see what we're doing right now. We've had a little bit of revamping in each area, and you see where this is getting us right now. Okay, we went from abysmal 2-10 to now 1 win away from bowl eligibility, with pretty tough schedule remaining, but definitely possible to get to 6, maybe even 7 wins. So this team is poised to shatter every preconceived notion that anyone had of them coming into the season. Okay, they're already doing that, but they have a chance to shatter it even further. They have a chance to really, with NIL in Nashville, with Nashville being one of the fastest growing cities in the country, with there's all sorts of opportunities within the healthcare system, the music business, and et cetera, et cetera. There's ton of avenues there. The scouting department, you're going to see this thing kind of shake out. The high school recruiting is already good. I don't want to say this is a coincidence, but Jared Curtis of Nashville Christian, he decommitted last week. I know Vanderbilt's offered him, but I don't know where he stands, right? Could they land a big fish there? They've had more visits. They've had more guys that are looking like they're going to flip. This is going to be very interesting coming down the stretch in December when early signing period comes. And it's really kind of more of standard signing day now. But when the signing period comes along, you're going to see more people than we ever thought possible, and some pretty big fish committing and signing with Vanderbilt. Why? Because things are improving. The stadium is going to be much improved. I think they're supposed to be completely done by August of next year. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The crowds are starting to become more pro Vanderbilt. I think there's some buzz surrounding this program. So that's good. And some of that buzz has been created by the creative team, right? Some of that buzz has really, really picked up some steam. The creative team has done phenomenal jobs with the graphics, with the videos, with all the social media presence that they have. It's been amazing, right? Liam Robbins and his NBA stuff, they put that stuff out there. They're putting all this football stuff out there with, each week they produce a little short movie. They do all these cool graphics with recruiting. They do all these cool. I mean, we didn't see any of this last year. We didn't see much of this last year. It was non-existent. And now, there's a presence that comes with that, right? There's something to be said when your creative team, when your social media team is really starting to kick it into high gear. It really puts a positive light around your program, because it's man, they're really doing a great job of selling the program. They're getting people excited about Vanderbilt football, and which is something I never thought would be possible coming off of last year, but it's there. You beat Alabama, you capitalize off that. I mean, the dang students took the goalpost 3 miles to the Cumberland, dumped in the Cumberland. They've had fun with that, right? Vanderbilt goes on the road and beats Kentucky. That's no fluke, right? So you've got the scouting department who's going to be, there's going to be a separate crew to get transfer portal people and keep an eye on the transfer portal, kind of like the pro scouts, where they look at who's cut and who's out there and who's available on these NFL practice squads. That's their job. So you're going to have that, and then you're going to have the high school recruiting people. You're going to have a full year under Coach Steiner. I'm excited to kind of see what that looks like. You've got, unfortunately, you've only got Pavia for a year unless they can find a way to grant that waiver. But, the development of this offense from day one till now has been absolutely amazing. Pavia's drastically improved. Some of these receivers are starting to come along. The running game is great. The offensive line has been phenomenal. So hats off to this team, man. First time in a decade. That's a huge deal. That's a huge deal for the first time in a decade, or decade plus, really. For the first time, you're seeing Vanderbilt ranked in the top 25. And I'm here for it, right? So Oregon's number 1, Georgia's number 2, Penn State's number 3, Ohio State 4, Texas is number 5. Then you've got Tennessee at 7, LSU at 8. I really like Clemson and Iowa State being ranked. BYU is amazing sitting there. Indiana should be ranked higher. Man, they just dismantled Nebraska. A&M at 14, Bama all the way down to 15. You don't see that very often. Ole Miss at 18, Mizzou at 21, and then Army and Navy both ranked 23 and 24, and then Vanderbilt sneaks in there at 25. So those are some of the notables. Illinois ranked 20th. That's, talk about a resurgence of that program too. But this is amazing. This is a huge story. This should be a huge deal, right? Clark Lee vowed to overhaul the program starting as soon as he walked off the field in Knoxville. He has done so to this point. He makes a bowl that validates what he's been able to do. You get to 7 wins. That's amazing. And you'll start to see this thing grow. I promise you. They get 2 more wins. They'll see this thing really start to take off. There'll be a lot of attention on them, and this will be amazing. It's a tough one coming in this weekend, but Vandy opens up at 19.5-point underdogs with Texas rolling into town. So that'll be a tough game. That was a tough game regardless of where they were ranked, but that was amazing. But we're going to break down this game a little bit. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but Vandy beats Ball State 24-14 in kind of an ugly win, but with some flashes of brilliance. Well, I'll tell you what that means next. All right. Z-Biotics every time I have a pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on cutting the grass, running some errands, or eating a nice lunch without worry. Look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially, but then while hanging out with my friends over at their house, I gave it a shot. And believe me, it's the real deal. So I first gave pre-alcohol a try when I was about to go to this party, this big event where I knew I had something the next day, but it was a big party. It was a friend of mine. I was doing them a favor, but I drank it for my first whiskey and ginger, and you wouldn't believe how on top of my game I felt the very next morning. I mean, I sprung up out of bed like it was nothing, right? So here's how you do it if you've never used the product before. All right, so you drink the pre-alcohol. For the best results, make it your first drink of the night. You drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep, all that stuff, which I'm sure you do when you go out and drink, right? Especially you college-age kids, you probably don't go hard at all. But enjoy tomorrow, wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com /LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com /LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. All right, welcome back. We are here, Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Thank you to you everydayers, especially. You guys make this thing what it is, man. But if you need a second listen to Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy does a great job. SEC Squad is an amazing show. I might go back on there again because Vandy cracked the top 25, man. This is amazing. So Vandy beats Ball State 24-14. So what do we glean from this? It's an ugly win, but a win nonetheless, right? So Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers were really good. All right, were really good. But before we kind of really get into individual performances, let's go back and look at the keys to the game. So handle being heavy favorites. I don't think we did that very well. Play a clean game to your identity on both sides. There was no turnovers. You won time of possession, and well, defense sort of got there. So develop depth as best you can. Not really. And manage the road environment. Well, there was no road environment, so they couldn't manage that. So, but here's the recap. Here's the team stats. Here's how it kind of unfolded. Vandy, 420 total yards, which is really good as far as total yards go. The points don't necessarily match up to it because they couldn't finish drives down there in the red zone, but they were 420 total yards, 145 on the ground, 275 through the air. So it looked like they were working on the pass game a little bit and succeeded just a little bit. First downs, 21-16 there. Turnovers, 0, 34 minutes, 35 seconds time of possession, which is good. You want to keep that number. You want to keep that number high. And against Texas, you want to try to make that a little bit higher, but just overall, like you look at the stats just at a glance, it was a really solid game for Vanderbilt. Now, the score left a lot to be desired. I think there were some lapses in there that caused for Ball State to get opportunities. I think Ball State held the ball a lot longer than Vanderbilt would have hoped for. And they had some opportunities that they didn't cash in on. There was some opportunities to score in the red zone, where you just barely miss a pass here, just barely miss a pass there. I think there was a ball that was thrown at the front pylon to Quincy Skinner that I don't know legitimately if it could have been caught or not, but bounced off his chest and it led to a field goal attempt. So it was one of those things where you hoped he would have caught that, but like there was opportunities that they didn't cash in on. But overall, I mean, I thought it was, I thought it was a solid win. I think that Vanderbilt had they not, they were sleepwalking a little bit. There was a little bit of a letdown, and the opponent, there is something to the opponent not generating as much of a vigor as say Alabama or Kentucky on the road, but they were able to get through this game, and they were able to make the plays when they needed to, which shows me that this team has matured even from the Georgia State game, because they were the same way in the Georgia State game, but that game was a slop fest from start to finish with very small, minute flashes of brilliance. But overall, I think this game was a lot better, a lot cleaner, and they gave themselves an opportunity to be a really good team. So it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, okay, well, we'll just put this one behind us. You win it. It didn't look pretty, but you win it. Okay. But looking at the stats, looking at the specific stats, Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers were amazing, right? Diego Pavia, his total stat line, 17 of 31, 275 yards with a touchdown. He had 13 carries for 82 yards and scoring one on the ground as well. Cedric Alexander had 12 carries for 41 yards, so that could have been better. But Eli Stowers had 8 catches for 130 yards and a touchdown. Absolutely brilliant there. But the other receivers kind of just barely chipped in and didn't really contribute a whole lot. There was some, like I said, there were some flashes. But overall, I thought the receivers could have been a lot better. But overall, but I don't want to take away from Eli Stowers. He was an absolute weapon last night. He, lots of catches and runs. That touchdown that he made was absolutely brilliant. And it's obvious that these two have a really nice connection, and this is going to be a dangerous connection down the road. And that's something that they're going to have to kind of exploit and really put a showcase on as they play Texas, as they play Auburn, as they play South Carolina, as they play LSU, as they play Tennessee. All right, they're gonna have to take that connection, build on it, and build around it. And if they can do that, I think they're gonna make some waves here in the stretch run of the season. I think they can really put one on South Carolina. I think they really put one on Auburn if they can find this connection and be consistent with it, right? And that's something that they were trying to work on in the passing game. Just just taking advantage of these opportunities, creating these opportunities, and getting Diego to capitalize on these opportunities that they had in and around the goal line, down, because they're not in these last 5 games. They're not going to be able to just run it in every single time. They're not going to be able to do the same things they did against Alabama, against Texas, against the rest of the schedule. They're just not. And so they're going to need more. They're going to need more things. They're going to need more ways to attack. They're going to need more ways to hurt the other team. And if they can't do that, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so if they're going to be, they can't rely on that. So this connection, I think, is a step in that direction. I think you saw some guys contribute with a catch or two here and there. But overall, it's just got to be there. It's got to be better. And these receivers have got to do a better job of getting open. They've got to do a better job of capitalizing when the ball comes to them. I mean, there's things that they can do that are going to get them in the limelight. And that's going to be something moving forward through the stretch run of the season. That's going to be something that's important. But we'll talk about kind of more of like where things flashed, where things need improvement, things like that. But a win is a win is a win is a win. And we'll take it. I'll take it. You'll take it. Anybody will take it. Trust me. All right. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. That's right. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So I'm sure that, if you look in your area, look at all the events, like Post Malone last night, I'm sure had some really, really good deals. I didn't really look, but I'm sure if I wanted to go, I probably could have found something. But the curation makes it even easier to save on sports, concerts, comedy, theater. So why wouldn't you do it? All-in pricing, if you toggle this feature on, it shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. That's an amazing feature right there. And it's the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Also, Game Time ticket coverage. Here, this one's elite. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, we are wrapping up the show here on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Check us out, man. Like, subscribe, find me on social media at Coach Burton36. If you want to get my personal account and catch everything that I'm doing at Locked On Vandy, if you're into the show and just want to follow the show, and then of course, Locked On Vandy, at Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. So talking about the game, Vandy was victorious 24-14 one last time. Here's the tail of the tape. 420 yards, 145 rushing, 275 passing, 21 first downs, 0 turnovers, and 34 minutes and 35 seconds of possession. Overall, a pretty good game, but in the grand scheme of things, pretty good game is not going to win you much down the stretch. And understandably, it was Ball State. It was night. They weren't exactly fired up for this game. They wanted to go out there and handle their business and do their thing. And they knew how important it was to get the win. But I don't think there was a whole lot of zest to go out there and dominate Ball State. And, a game that they should have. They should have covered the spread. They should have been able to get more guys in the game. But they just, that's the thing in college football. This happens, right? There's a little bit of lackadaisical. There's a little bit of lack of focus. It's called a letdown. And you hope your letdown doesn't result in a loss in games like this. It did before. It didn't, fortunately, this weekend, which shows you a little bit more, like I said, a little bit more of a maturing process with this team. They know how to handle business, even when they're not at their best. And that's what they That's what they precisely did. Brock Taylor was amazing in this game. Again, he was really, really good. He was 3 for 3 on field goals. He had a long of 38. Jesse Mirko had 3 punts for 137 yards with a 45-yard average. So special teams was good. Martell Height had 3 returns for 42 yards. And Junior Sherrill had 2 kickoff returns for 57 yards. So yeah, this is, and I think one of them was not returned for a touchback. But defensively, the standout was Nick Rinaldi. He had 7 tackles, a sack, and a tackle for loss. CJ Taylor had 6 tackles. Demarion Thomas had a sack, so you're building a little bit of depth there. Ryan Longwell had another solid game, had a tackle for loss, but no takeaways created. And just, I don't know, the defense could have dominated more. They could have really, really taken this game over and said, you know what, we're just going to, because they could, they absolutely could. But I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the results, and rightfully so sometimes. But when you see a game that's like this, that's lackadaisical, and they still win by double-digit points, and a team that's not used to doing that type of thing, it's always a good thing that they can finish out games when they're not focused at optimal peak focus. Because this is a game they probably normally would have lost in years past, or even earlier this year. This is the type of game that they already have lost. One of their 2 losses was one of these type of games against Georgia State on the road. But they got the job done in what was pretty much a letdown. But they won the fourth quarter. Their pass rush was improved when they kind of woke up and said, "Hey, we got to go win this game." That's when you saw this team really kind of start to ignite. Vanderbilt's running backs had 30 carries. Wasn't able to get much going. The receivers, they just weren't there. And Pavia was 17 of 31, so he missed some throws too. And the pass game is something that I think, outside of Eli Stowers, who was brilliant, like I said last segment, but I think, again, this was a prime opportunity, and 275 yards is good as a team stat. But when you look at 130 of those yards went to one person, you're not really building a whole lot of depth. And that's something that I think that as the weeks go on, you have to continue to try to improve that. You have to get guys involved. Now, I understand, it takes a combined effort. It takes Pavia being able to hit them, and it takes these guys being able to get open, create separation, and do the things they need to get the ball in their hand and make plays and make something happen with it. They haven't done that to this point, whether it's Pavia not being able to connect, or whether it's them not giving them the chance to get a connection with Pavia, i.e. creating separation, i.e. running the right routes, i.e. really just being an overall playmaker. We got a couple of lemons in the transfer portal, which happens maybe. And then the other guys are just not quite there yet. And that's got to change down the stretch. If you're going to beat Texas, that's got to change. You've got to have somebody besides Stowers step up, because Texas is going to key in on the run game, which everyone struggled with so far. So I don't know how Texas is going to fare with that, but Texas is coming off of a huge emotional game in which they were not successful. So there is a emotional aspect of it, and there's an aspect of, okay, maybe we're not as good as we thought we were. So you got a combination of that coming into Nashville, which could bear probably 2 different results of, hey, they're still hungover from that, and you can kind of go out there and strike, kind of like what you did against Alabama. You took advantage of Alabama being a little bit hungover, and then when Alabama woke up, it was too late. Texas could come in the same way, or they could come in with their hair on fire and absolutely blow you out of the water, which is also very much possible because they're pissed off that, Georgia came in and smacked them around a little bit. But either one of those things, if you're going to be able to give yourself a chance and keep you in the game. These are the things that have to happen. You have to be able to more consistently dominate up front at the line of scrimmage on either side. You have to find better traction in the run game. You have to get more chunk plays, and those chunk plays are going to have to come from receivers other than Eli Stowers. You're going to have to do those things. Those are the things that are next on the agenda. Those are the things you weren't able to accomplish against Ball State. Now, I'll take it. A win is a win is a win is a win, especially for Vanderbilt. You take every win no matter how they come. But the fact of the matter is this. If you want to get to that 6th win, you have to start doing these little things and doing these little things well. And that'll come. That'll come with time. They'll find a receiver. Quincy Skinner is on the verge. He's right there. Junior Sherrill is right there. Richie Hoskins is right there. They just haven't peaked yet. They haven't crossed that. They haven't crossed that threshold yet. And when they do, this offense is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be ridiculous when they finally do step over that threshold. And Diego Pavia, they're able to make more connections with Pavia, and Pavia is able to make more connections with them. This offense is going to be insanely ridiculous, and everyone's going to be like, "Holy cow, this is a video game offense. This is nuts." But anyway, 24-14 victory. Put it in the books. It got you to your first ranking in a decade, so that's good. And it kept you on track for what your goal is, which is a bowl game. Now you're one game away. But we'll talk about more of that. We'll talk about more of a little bit more of Texas. We'll get a look at them, and we'll get a look at some of the factors and some of the key players in that matchup, and we'll go from there. But until then, anchor down and behave yourselves. Peace.